If you know what to do, this can be done in 5 minutes. This video is long on purpose. So you have learned that blockers block up to 50% of data on your website. Or maybe you tried server-side solutions, which turned to be blocked as well. Or maybe you just want 100% accurate data from your campaigns, reports, and tracking tools on the full set of products that you already have. In this tutorial video, I'll show you how to install, configure, and use DataUnlocker, your front-end's guardian. It's free for small sites and has plans for every scale. We also provide a done-for-you setup services. Just text our support or book a live call. So you have a website. For this tutorial, I'll use a relatively simple website made with Next.js and containing 3 pages and 3 marketing tools. As I open Network tab right now, you can see that there are some calls to GTM, Google Tag Manager, HotJar, Google Analytics, somewhere down there, Facebook events, and yeah. All these tools are loaded via GTM. GTM has a few tags in it. It can be server-side or client-side GTM. For DataUnlocker, this doesn't matter. So I use client-side. And this application is made with React. You can use any framework, anything is supported. I will show this later. I've selected these products for demo, but you can literally use DataUnlocker with anything: server-side tag manager, first party, third party, doesn't matter. DataUnlocker solves blocking in general, and moreover, it ensures that your app stays non-blockable. For all your products, we just solve JavaScript. There's just a little setup needed, which I'm gonna show you now. It's not surprising, but lots of your website visitors use ad blockers, and sometimes it can be even 50% of users for some technical audience, for instance. And if I enable blocker right now, then you can see that lots of network requests won't happen, and this Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics is replaced by a resource served by ad blocker. You won't see it as blocked, but it's actually what we call stubbed resource. Same as blocked, basically. Also, for demonstration purposes, I have 2 environments set: a production environment, which is 3w-data.win, and a development website, which is the same but dev-data-win. This complicates this video a bit, but it shows how you can manage your environments with DataUnlocker. The development website also has single sign-on configured. So if I open it in incognito window, which basically removes all cookies, then you will see this screen instead of the site, and you will need to type in your email to sign in. You can find the source code of this demo down below in the description. If you clone this repository in your GitHub and import it in Cloudflare with these settings, you should get the same setup with a few additional clicks to enable Cloudflare Zero Trust and configure the dev environment, if you need one. So let's get started. Installing DataUnlocker on the site consists of a few steps: creating what we call a transport endpoint for proxy, integrating DataUnlocker into your JavaScript application, and securing your tracking tools with some configuration. So I will start by going to DataUnlocker.com. This is basically our landing. It may be different at the moment when I record this video, of course. I will click sign up, and this will navigate me to admin.dataunlocker.com, a web interface where you can manage all your domains. I will sign in with demo.dataunlocker.com, which is my email for this demo. Actually, I will get an email with a button that lets me sign in. I will copy the link to this button just to insert it into another tab, but you can just click the button if that were you, and you will start onboarding process. The system asks me to create a project. I can pick any friendly name like Quack. And then if you're a user of our old good product, then you will find domains to import right below. But I'm not, so I will type my domain right in here. And yes, I will start from the development domain first. So my development domain is dev-data-win. Don't tell me anything about this name. And I click next. So once you add this site, DataUnlocker will try to access it. And as you can see, this site redirects to some Cloudflare access, which means that this is a Cloudflare single sign-on address. I would like to just keep my domain and not install it on any other domains. Now on this screen, I'm asked to invite others to the project, which I can skip at the moment. I don't need anyone else. Great, so we are already 40% done. Wow! I have added the domain, now I need to create a transport endpoint. In simple terms, the transport endpoint is the URL on your site that is used to proxy data from your front end to backends of all the products and analytics tools you are using. Okay, let's begin by creating a transport endpoint. You can create two types of transport endpoints. Generally, this is path and subdomain transport. Path transport endpoint will create a path prefix on your site, which you will proxy to DataUnlocker. Subdomain, respectively, will create a third-party domain, which is actually a subdomain of your domain, and it has some limitations, so we recommend you to use path transport endpoints. In setting up DataUnlocker, we recommend using Cloudflare. Cloudflare has a global network of so-called workers that allow nearly instant proxy at any location, and this is managed by Cloudflare, so you don't need to do anything to maintain your proxies. If your website is not yet on Cloudflare, we recommend you to consider using it, because it's quite straightforward to migrate your DNS to Cloudflare, and if you're struggling, feel free to reach out to our support. So I will keep using Cloudflare path, and I will click Add Transport Endpoint in here. I have just created my new transport endpoint. I will drill down, and what I will see is instructions of how to set up this endpoint. The first step of this instruction will tell me about the proxy status of my endpoint, and will double check that I am using Cloudflare and I have Orange Cloud enabled for the DNS record of my website. I will double check this in my Cloudflare dashboard right in here at domain, DNS records. And as you can see, I have two records and both of them are proxied. All right, so I will tick this button and continue with the instructions. At this step, DataUnlocker offers me to rename my endpoint. It generated a random path prefix, but I can also rename it to something else. For instance, I can name it Analytics, but this will be a bad name for tracking because this URL is widely recognized as tracking, and some blockers block URLs with /analytics. So it's better to take some names that are not present in any filter lists. For instance, Quack. Or you can leave the default name, it doesn't matter. At the next step, I'll be asked to create a new Cloudflare worker. Basically, the instruction will tell me how to do this. The only thing I need to do is to copy the name of the worker, which is also up to me. I could name the worker any way I can. So I go to Cloudflare, I go to Compute, and I click on Create. I check that I create worker, and I start with Hello World Worker and input the name of the worker that I have copied. Then I click Deploy. Shortly, my worker will be deployed, and I will be able to edit the code of this worker. This is what the instruction says later. Update Cloudflare's code. So I will click on this Edit Code button, and I will insert this little code snippet into the Cloudflare worker. Edit code, and I will paste the code in here, and I will click Deploy. All right, version saved. The worker has been deployed, but this is almost what I need to do. The last step is assign a path to your worker. So it's basically telling me to make the worker available via some path. And as you can guess, this path is on our domain. So I will need to go to Settings, click on Add button, and specify this as the route input. Let me go to my worker, go to Settings, click Add, click on Route, select my domain, then paste what I have to paste. This, I will leave this as a default, and I will click on Add Route. Also, instructions tell me to disable some default routes that we have, because we don't need to use them, and we don't want crawlers to use them. So I will disable both that I have, and leave only one, the new one that I have added. Alright, I'm ready for a health check. Health check will tell me if the setup is okay, and as you can see, it's not. It's not okay on purpose, because why should it work from the first time, right? In order to understand what's wrong, I need to click on the test that fails and see the details of the request that has failed. As you can see, DataUnlocker attempted to query this URL and it has received this response. So what will happen if I try to query it from the browser? Let me see. Actually, it works. It tells me some data. Then the question, why doesn't it work? So I need to take a look on instructions later and see that it says try opening a request URL in incognito mode from a different IP address. Maybe that's something I need to try. Let me copy this request, open the incognito window and paste it there. And here I see the problem. So I have a Cloudflare Zero Trust screen that actually asks me to sign in. That is something DataUnlocker cannot do on its own, but we should allow DataUnlocker to do it, because transport endpoints are essential. So I need to tell Cloudflare Access to accept DataUnlocker's health check. And to do this, I need to use health check options. Health check options let me send any headers in the requests that DataUnlocker health checks do to your site or your transporting points. Basically, I can add any header in here and it will be sent within the request. So to let Cloudflare accept DataUnlocker, I will go to Cloudflare, Zero Trust, go to Access, and I'll show you that I have just one application in here and one policy in here, which actually allows my email to access this application. What I need to do for DataUnlocker health check is service auth. In service auth, I need to create a service token. I can call it literally DataUnlocker health check. Make it non-expiring unless I want to update it every year. And here we go. We have Cloudflare Access Client ID and Cloudflare Access Client Secret, which are headers that we need to attach to every request that DataUnlocker sends to be able to access the application. So I'm gonna copy and paste this header and their values into respective fields at DataUnlocker. For Cloudflare Access Client ID, I don't need to encrypt the secret. I will just click add in here and then add one more header, Cloudflare Access Client Secret. And as for client secret, I will encrypt it. Encryption works in this way. If you encrypt the secret, you will never see the secret value on the UI, regardless of who uses your project on DataUnlocker. And if you don't encrypt it, you will see the value right here as is. So this is almost it. What I need to do now on Cloudflare, I need to click Save in here, go to Policies, create a new policy. Actually, policy is something like allow DataUnlocker health check. And action, not very obvious, but I need to check action service auth. The service auth in selector, I can select the service token, a specific token that I have created for this policy, DataUnlocker health check. Once I've selected this, I click Save. And here's my policy. The last thing, I go to Applications, I go to my web application, which is my domain. I go to Policies in here and add existing policy, which is allow DataUnlocker health check. And click Confirm. Finally, I click Save Application. Now, if I get back to where I have left, actually to a setup, transport endpoints, Cloudflare path, and the health check of the Cloudflare endpoint, and I hope in that when I click Revalidate, it works. Finally, my endpoint is almost ready. As you can see, DataUnlocker's edge is up to date, is pending. It should really shortly come up with an update. And finally, it's done. I have a working transport endpoint which is 100% ready. We can now go back to setup and see that our next step is to add DataUnlocker Defender to our website. So I will just click on Defender in here. Here I need to select my stack or technology what I've used to build my web application or website. So DataUnlocker Defender is a JavaScript protection layer for your website. And as you can see, you have a few technologies in here you can select and integrate Defender pretty much easily. We are constantly working to expand this list, and if a technology is not available right now, you can either request it via our support or use universal setup options, which are suitable pretty much for all technologies. I can select JavaScript file patching and JavaScript package. If you are using WordPress, Shopify, or some site builders, you will be fine with JavaScript file patching. By the way, the native WordPress support is coming very soon, and feel free to ask our support about any available options. For my case, I will select React, because my application is made on Next.js framework, and I will press Select. So the integration itself is quite simple, but there are things that you should know before integration. DataUnlocker Defender is designed to be tightly coupled with your JavaScript application, so that blockers can't separate it from the web application. This is important if you want your site to stay protected even when discovered by blockers community, and it gets attention from there. I will just check all the boxes here, and perhaps the most important part to understand is that DataUnlocker becomes a runtime dependency for your web application, just like any service provider that you use, for instance, to host your web application. So now I will continue to install DataUnlocker Defender, and the first step, as you may guess, is to install npm package. Pretty much before releasing this video, I found out that the instructions you will see are outdated already because npm released a new version. So please check the new instructions on DataUnlocker. But the way you install it is a little bit not typical. First, you need to set the environment variable and then install the package. If you're using the deployment pipeline, this environment variable should be also available in the deployment pipeline itself. In my case, I have pretty much 3 environments: local, development, and production environment. For the local and development environment, I'm gonna use exactly this DataUnlocker ID from here. And as the guide suggests, I'm going to put it into the npm.rc file because I'm using npm. So I'll go to my application, find the npm.rc file that does not exist, and because it does not exist, I need to create it. npm.rc, and to this file, I'll put DataUnlocker ID. Right after creating this file, I can finally run the npm install command. But first, let me show you if there will be no such file and I try to npm install DataUnlocker Defender React, it will fail and tell me that I need DataUnlocker ID to be specified. So once I uncomment this line, I expect this installation to be successful. And it actually is. Now I have the package installed, and I can continue with my setup. There are multiple ways of how can you integrate DataUnlocker into the React application: as a component, which I would recommend, and as a hook if you want to be more custom. I will choose the component, and basically I will copy the lines that I need to insert into my layout TypeScript file. Let me find the layout in here. Yeah, I'll insert import in here. And finally wrap my application with Defender right in here. And finally, I will click Save. Before moving forward, I can check how this application works locally. npm run dev will tell me this. I will open this link, and here's my application. Seemed to work. But the most important part, if I go to DevTools and refresh the page, I will notice that there is one more call in here. This is exactly what DataUnlocker do. It initializes itself. And moreover, what you can see, it uses the transport endpoint we have just created, dev DataUnlocker win/quok, the path transport endpoint. Okay, now let me show you what will happen if something goes wrong on this step. For instance, I will right-click on this request and say block request by URL, simulating a case where your transport endpoint is not reachable. When I will refresh the page, I will see this message, page interactivity disabled. It basically means that DataUnlocker was not able to initialize, and this is the basic defense of DataUnlocker. I will explain it a little bit later. What you should do in such a case, you need to figure out why this request fails. For instance, in my case, it could be that SSO is configured on this domain dev data-win, and I need to either authorize there by opening dev data-win, which is my dev environment, or add this transport endpoint to the exceptions on Cloudflare. After finding the root cause of the problem, you should have this unblocked and the application should load just normally. Finally, let me apply these changes by stopping my environment, local environment, and submitting these changes to dev environment. By git commit add DataUnlocker Defender. Alright, I expect this application to appear on my dev data-win just in a few minutes after it is deployed on Cloudflare. By the way, I can open Cloudflare, go to Compute Workers, find my web application, and see that it is being deployed right now. Nice, it has been deployed, and now let me check if it works on dev data-win. I'll refresh the page and see that there is DataUnlocker call to my transport endpoint. That means it works, but it's not protecting our data from blockers just yet. There are a few steps left. I'll go back to DataUnlocker and continue the setup. There are some examples of how can you customize Defender. I'm not gonna do it now. I will continue to move your tracking code section, as this is the most important section. It actually tells me that I can already validate my setup, and I'm curious how it will work, so I will scroll down and click health check. I will get back to this soon. The health check is working, doing something, and finally it's done. As you can see, it's 60% ready, which already means everything is good. I will go and unfold this item and we'll find out there are some tracking tools that I use that are blocked by blockers and that are initialized, as it says, before DataUnlocker Defender loads. And it's pretty much common sense that all the tracking tools you use should initialize after DataUnlocker Defender loads for DataUnlocker to be able to protect them. And DataUnlocker Defender loads asynchronously, so you need to load your tools after DataUnlocker Defender. Let's get back to installations instructions and complete the last step that I have skipped. So I need to move my tracking code, and I have two options. Move my tracking code to DataUnlocker's Secure Enclave, or invoke tracking code after web application loads. For the purpose of tracking, we highly recommend to use DataUnlocker's Secure Enclave, which is basically a code block that is delivered to your front end. If you are using Google Tag Manager as I do, that would be just moving one single line of code into another location. If you are using any other analytics product, typically they give you a little code that you need to insert onto your website. This code is exactly what you need to insert into the DataUnlocker's Secure Enclave. So let me show you how to do it. I have Google Tag Manager, and if I go to Google Tag Manager website, under my development tag, if I go to admin and I go to install Google Tag Manager, here's the code that I need to embed into my website. This is exactly the code that I want to copy and paste into the Secure Enclave. As you can see, DataUnlocker has identified one item, but with warnings. And if I click in here, it says not protected because resource Google Tag Manager, or its full URL, is detected as typically blocked but has no DataUnlocker configuration. This is fine because I'm gonna to configure it just in a moment. Right now what I'm gonna do is to click Apply and wait until the application is finished. This will immediately serve Google Tag Manager on my site, and what is left to do is to delete the tracking code I already have in my web application right here, the same Google Tag Manager. As you can see, in my case, it was done with enabled tracking function, which uses tracking component, where tracking component is used right here. And I will just delete this component from here and leave Defender as is, because tracking is now served by Defender. And as always, I will save my web application and commit my changes. I can say remove tracking, or even more specific, move tracking to DataUnlocker's Secure Enclave. Git push will push this application to Cloudflare, and again I can see the progress of this application being deployed. So now my web application will be loaded without any tracking up to the point when DataUnlocker Defender loads, and finally it will execute the Secure Enclave code, which will add tracking. If you have configured your transport endpoint to use Cloudflare, the latency to your transport endpoint will be minimal, like 50 to 100 milliseconds, and tracking will be initialized really quickly even before the page loads. Alright, my deployment has completed, and I will go to my application right here. I will refresh the page, and here, as you can see from the network, at first DataUnlocker loads, then all other tracking tools that I have are loaded successfully. So once again, in my case, DataUnlocker Secure Enclave loads Google Tag Manager, and Google Tag Manager loads all other analytics products that I have. And because they load after DataUnlocker, DataUnlocker can protect them. Finally, I will go to my health check again, right in here in Setup, Defender, and retry it. I hope now it will be green. Yes, now it's exactly 100% ready. Before configuration, I will demonstrate that right now if I go to my website, I refresh the page, all the tracking tools are loaded, but if I enable ad blocker and refresh the page, then all these tools are again not loaded. These tools that you have here, GTM, is using internal redirect, and Google Analytics is served from ad blocker itself. So it's basically replacing real Google Analytics to a fake Google Analytics that AdBlocker uses. So let's finally fix it. I will go back to DataUnlocker, click on Setup, and the final step is Configuration, which basically navigates me to Network Protection. It has some messages in here, but basically all I need to do is press this Detect Resources button and wait until it detects whatever is installed in my website. Let me wait a little bit, because DataUnlocker now scans my website, and just shortly I should see Google, HotJar, and Meta, pretty much all products that I have installed on my website. There might be something missing in this list, because DataUnlocker scans the very first page, the main page of your website, and it might not find other products that you have there. So you might need to add more resources by clicking on Add Resources button. Right here we can choose from resource groups on the left, or scroll down to actually click on Custom Resource and input any domain that I want to be proxied through DataUnlocker. For instance, if I had my server-side Google Tag Manager installed, I would put the server-side URL in here, which is, for instance, gtm.dataquack.win, and click Add button. Its URL will appear right in here, but I don't need it, so I will drop it from this list. Resource groups are just a collection of resources I can define network protection for. And network protection basically has three modes: always, on-demand, and disabled. Always means that your resource will be protected at all times, even if your users don't use blockers. In turn, on-demand will activate network protection or proxy only if your users use blockers, and respectively disabled tells DataUnlocker to never use proxy for this resource. DataUnlocker's blocker detection guarantees that 99% of traffic will be detected, as using blockers are not. But if you want 100% accurate results, then go with always. It will also consume more traffic, because for instance, if your ad blocker usage rate is 20%, then only 20% of requests will go through proxy if you choose on-demand. If you choose always, then all 100% of requests to third parties that you select in here will go through proxy. So for the purpose of this demo, I will leave the defaults and click Apply button. I will need to wait just a little bit before it applies. So it has finished saving. As you can see, apply is not loading anymore. I can get back to my website in here and refresh the page to see what happens. Right now I see all this GTM, Google Analytics, HotJar, Facebook as is, right? But what happens if I enable ad blocker right now? You can see that all these requests are now encoded, or in other words, protected and hidden from blockers. You can notice different types of resources in here: scripts, plain text, WebSocket, fetch. All of the requests are protected if I'm browsing with a blocker enabled. And the coolest part of DataUnlocker is its continuous protection of your website. It makes tracking an integral part of your web application, and if blockers, for instance, will try to block DataUnlocker proxy from here, what they will face is page interactivity disabled, which is not the blocker's goal. Even if blockers will try to modify how JavaScript runs on your website, the same message will appear. And moreover, which is important, if blockers will try to remove this message, like this, the web application is non-interactive anymore. You can't click, you cannot visit pages, you just can read whatever on the page, but no interactivity. Because if you integrate DataUnlocker in a way that the website is still available and still interactive, while anyone can block network requests, this of course won't work in the long run. This behavior is customizable, and we will roll out some features that will allow it soon. Alright, we have just finished the installation of DataUnlocker on this site. I'm gonna press done now, boom, and go back to setup and see that everything is fine. It's 100% ready. But in my case, it was a development website, and I also need to do the same for production environment. DataUnlocker is domain dependent, which means for each separate domain, I need to create a new domain on DataUnlocker right in here. And to add my production domain, I will need to add domain right here. Go to 3w DataUnlocker's, which is my production domain, and click Add Domain. And now I can quickly go through the setup steps for this new production domain again. I'll go to Transport Endpoint, add a Transport Endpoint, Cloudflare path, click on it, click. I will leave the default path in here, then copy the Cloudflare worker, name, go to compute workers, create new hello world worker, paste the name, deploy. Then while it's being deployed, I will copy the code, edit code, insert the code, click deploy, click on here, go back, settings, add root, DataQuack add root, disable, just like the instruction says, and health check. Alright, it was done in 1 minute. Let me wait until the edge is up to date, so it's 100%. And now it's ready. But before I install Defender on my production domain, I would like to configure the application before, so that Defender can pick the configuration immediately. I already have configuration in here, because the production domain is not protected by any single sign-on like Cloudflare OneTrust for development environment, and DataUnlocker was able to get the resources that we need to protect straight away. So I will only need to click done in here, and then go back to setup, Defender, select the stack, React, just the same way I did before. I will even skip all the instructions up to health check. One more step. I need to go to Secure Enclave and insert in here the GTM code, pretty much the same way I did for dev, but with a little difference in what code I paste in here. I will go to Google Tag Manager, and instead of the development Google Tag Manager in here, I will go to all my tags and paste the production tag. Right in here in admin, install Google Tag Manager, copy the code, and paste the code in here. One item identified, that means everything is fine. Now I click apply, and my config is being updated. And the other thing is that you need to tell DataUnlocker to use the corresponding DataUnlocker ID for production environment. For 3W data quack win in setup, I can copy the DataUnlocker ID in here, go to Cloudflare, select the application, go to settings, and check that I have this production environment settings in here. So I'm adding settings for a production environment. And scroll down to find environment variables. Variables and secrets in here. And I will add a new variable of type DataUnlocker ID with value of DataUnlocker ID. And now I can press save in here. And we'll try to deploy my application. So I'll do git rebase on main, which will update all the changes from the main branch. And I will do git push to push these changes to production. Now I can check the status of my deployment on Cloudflare in the workers and pages in here, view details, and I can see how it's being deployed. I could perhaps even see the build settings and find my DataUnlocker ID right here. And the important part is that DataUnlocker ID has to be present at the build stage of the web application, exactly when the web application is being built. I will wait until it finishes. Right now it says my site was deployed. I'll go back to DataUnlocker, Defender, Health Check, Revalidate. Let's see this time. Alright, now it's ready. So now we have the development and production environment ready. Let me check if the production environment actually works properly. I will open DevTools in here, refresh the page, and I will see the same behavior on my production environment. I'm browsing with my blocker enabled, so you can see that all my network requests which correspond to analytics are now encoded. There is more to talk about here. Is this a blocked network request? You can see that there is only one blocked request and everything else is not blocked. What is this? If you configure to proxy your resources as on-demand, or in other words where blocker is enabled, then DataUnlocker will issue some requests to test the network and test whether you have blocker installed. So this request isn't connected to your tools, and in fact it doesn't collect anything. It just tries to match the URLs that blockers typically block. Next question. What if blockers block my transport endpoint URL? As I already demonstrated, if we go and block any of these requests that go through DataUnlocker proxy, then you will see this page interactivity disabled, which is an exact thing that guarantees that blockers will not be able to cut DataUnlocker from your site. And even if blockers will try to play with JavaScript, fetch, set timeout, any JavaScript APIs, they will face the same behavior. Your site is not interactive. This is an exact thing that protects your site in the long run, leaving blockers with no tools to change it. So the blockers will have the binary choice whether to block the entire site or nothing. And in fact, the entire purpose of blockers is to have the web application working, carefully cutting unwanted tracking or ads. That's what DataUnlocker secures. You can't cut it anymore. Even if they find a sneaky-peeky way to circumvent DataUnlocker, our infrastructure is designed to roll out fixes globally without even notifying our customers. And DataUnlocker will definitely know it way before all your blocker users will start to get filter list updates. So don't worry, stay protected. Next question. So how do I know if it actually works? Well, it's better to test it in action. DataUnlocker is a protection layer which should be compatible with all products, but may have some non-obvious specifics due to the nature of how it works. But it works. Let's test my application end-to-end. Right in here, I have a very private phone with VPN and privacy software on it. I will try to open a specific page of my website on this phone and will try to find the specific page view in my analytics dashboards. Let's do it now. So I have 3 analytics products installed on my website: Google Analytics, HotJar, and Metapixel. Respectively, I would like to see data coming into the real-time overview of Google Analytics, into the recordings of HotJar, and Metapixel dashboard. At least I would like to see events in here. Now, on my device, I'm gonna to enter the VPN application and choose some VPN location. Let's try to browse from Romania. All right, the VPN also has some basic protection. Maybe let's enable all this inline threat shield, DNS ad block, and test how ad block works. And I'll click test ad block, and it says 99% hosts blocked, so I guess it works. All right, I'm done with VPN, and now I will try a browser which blocks all trackers and ads. I will type www.dataquack.win/clicker. Go. Okay, here's the clicker. I will click a few times on this button just to ensure it's interactive. I will not browse to any other page, so that's done. Now I will check my dashboards. Let me see what we have in there in Google Analytics. Yep, we have a hit, and we have a hit approximately from Romania. That's exactly my VPN location. And the page view event has been successfully delivered. And as you can see, it's coming from DataUnlocker. By using Google Analytics, you can also measure how many events are coming from DataUnlocker and how many events are coming directly from browser if you have on-demand mode enabled in your network protection configuration. If I come to HotJar from here, I would perhaps need to wait a little bit until events appear at HotJar dashboard. And let me also see the Facebook. Also, I would refresh the page. 3W DataQuack win. And it's still 4 events. So for HotJar and Facebook, I'm gonna wait just a little bit. And in the meantime, I will also show you this. In test events at Facebook, you will find that events may be delayed. Test events appear in real time, but it may take up to 30 minutes after you set up your events to see it in your analytics. That's exactly what it takes. However, if you will try to test your website with tools that Meta has on this UI, you will likely see the test failed. Let me try this. So we have confirmed your website events are set up correctly right here. And if I expand this, it asks me to enter the URL of the website to test. Let me do this and say test events. I will open the page with ad blocker enabled, as you can see. So my events are blocked by blockers, but I have DataUnlocker installed, right? If I go back to Events Manager, events will not appear in here. And there is a reason for it. The reason is URLs. If you open this page and go to Developer Tools, refresh this page and see these URLs are encoded. So the Events Manager tool will not likely track these events because URLs of the events are changed, but the events themselves will soon appear in the dashboard. Let's just give it some time and have a tea in the meantime. All right, Facebook has been activated. You see that the custom event has been processed with a partner integration today at 5:12. I have 5:14, so it's like 2 minutes ago the event has been processed, which means that Facebook indeed receives events from DataUnlocker. And we finally get the event approximately 15 minutes after it was issued. And if I go to view details and pick, for instance, devices, I will find that one hit comes from mobile iPhone, which was exactly my privacy phone. And we have finally received an event in HotJar dashboard from Romania. It took around 1 hour to get delivered into here, but most likely because I forgot to switch off my screen and the session duration is almost half an hour. Anyway, I can go and view what has been recorded. I will show you some features of DataUnlocker that you have in the UI. Let's start from project overview. Projects are like folders for domains where you can organize them and add billing to them. For instance, in my case, I have 2 domains in this project, and if I scroll down below, I can see the content blockers usage on these domains, which means that approximately 20% of page views were opened with ad blocker. And down below you can find billing, where you can see that I have a free plan, and I can go to billing to check what other plans our product has. DataUnlocker uses subscription and pay-as-you-go model, where you are charged for the number of requests that went through DataUnlocker's proxy. DataUnlocker will always have a free tier for small websites, and feel free to contact our support if you need to go custom. You can always find the number of requests you have at the requests balance, and additionally, if you go over it, you can find it in requests overuse in here. And even if you will have a traffic spike and go beyond that, you will be given a period of time at when you can resolve your traffic issues. So what I can do, I can either go and add more requests straightforwardly, buying for instance 2 million requests for $100, or I can subscribe to a plan. The higher the plan tier, the cheaper the traffic. Also, in a project, you can go to settings and invite other users to this project. For instance, right now you can see that only demo.dataunlocker.com has been invited, and I can invite more users and give them different roles. For instance, viewers will only be able to view the project, billing manager will only be able to manage the billing of the project, and so on. Now, let me check the dashboard of the domain. I will select the domain from the left menu and select the production domain. Or better, even development domain, because I guess it has a little bit more of data. At the top right corner of the dashboard, I can change the period for which the dashboard is displayed, and for instance, I can say 7 days. It will render the 7-day usage of this dashboard and will show me that only 7% of page views were opened with ad blocker. The next section is active filters for this domain. DataUnlocker tracks all the filter lists used by blockers, and it will notify you over email when a new filter is added against your domain. If you have more or less popular website, then it's very likely that you already have some filters assigned to it. And you can check that for free straight on DataUnlocker.com. Now, the last part of the dashboard is proxied resources. It's the place where you can see how many HTTP requests were proxied through DataUnlocker. All requests are grouped by same resource groups that you had in your network protection configuration. There is also some additional information in here, and if you get any errors, you will see error details right here. If you're struggling with setup or debug something, feel free to reach to our support until we release more tools for you to debug it yourself. But there are already lots of tools available. If you click here, you will learn that we provide live support, have the documentation, have the community to ask questions in, and of course I will release this video and link it in here, and you have our support email in here for any questions. So that's it. That was long and almost complete overview of DataUnlocker. Mind that the product evolves and will get new features over time, so this video may get outdated. Feel free to explore DataUnlocker yourself, and do not hesitate to contact our support if you need any features. This was Nikita, founder of DataUnlocker. If you find this video useful, feel free to share or subscribe to our social networks. Also, visit DataUnlocker.com for more information and feel free to reach out. Thanks for watching. Your front-end's guardian, DataUnlocker.